Welcome to Devotionary, where we make the Bible accessible and applicable. It just seems like David can't get a break. Everything came hard for this young man. Even with Saul out of the way, the path to the throne was still covered in landmines of all kinds. And while David may have thought that with Saul's death, the throne was now vacant, he was in for a big surprise. Because it seems that Saul had yet another son, who, unlike Jonathan, had not been killed in battle, but was alive and well. And Abner, Saul's military commander, decided to anoint the surviving son of Saul as the heir to his father's throne. The next thing David knew, he had a competitor for the crown and a civil war to fight. Not only had the people of Israel been defeated by the Philistines, now they were fighting among themselves. Not exactly the way David wanted to begin his reign. But in spite of the circumstances, God was still in control. He was fulfilling his plan according to his sovereign will. None of this caught God off guard, and David was learning to trust God in spite of the circumstances. The fact that verse 8 starts with the word "but" should tell us something. There's something about to happen that's going to stand in direct contrast to the events found in the first 7 verses. David had received a warm welcome from the people of Judah, but that was to be expected since he was of the tribe of Judah. David knew he was going to have a more difficult time winning over the rest of the tribes of Israel and convincing them to make him their king. That's part of the reason behind his overtures to the men of Jabesh-Gilead, because they were of the tribe of Gad. The nation of Israel, while having been united under the leadership of Saul, was still little more than a loose confederation of 12 tribes. Their relationships with each other were typically fractious and contentious. Now David was attempting to unite them under his leadership and sovereignty as king. But that's not the only "but" in these verses. There was yet another facing David's quest to become the king of Israel. It seems that not all of Saul's sons had died with him on the battlefield. There was one name left out, Ishbosheth. He was the youngest of Saul's 4 sons, and would have been about 40 years old when his father and brothers fell at the Battle of Gilboa. His given name was Eshbaal, which provides us with an interesting insight into King Saul. Baal was a Canaanite deity, and the name Eshbaal means man of Baal. So Saul had named his youngest son after a false god. Interestingly enough, the Jews would not repeat the name of this pagan idol, so they substituted the word Bosheth, which meant shame or confusion. So Eshbaal became known as Ishbosheth. And the son of Jonathan, who will appear later on in the story, was known as Mephibosheth. But back to Ishbosheth. It seems that this one son of Saul either survived the Battle of Gilboa or was not even present. And Abner, the commander of Saul's armies, decided to use this sole surviving son as a tool to keep David from ascending to the throne. Keep in mind that Saul was of the tribe of Benjamin, as was Abner, his uncle. So it seems that Abner was attempting to keep the crown within the ranks of the Benjaminites. So Abner appointed him king over Gilead, the Geshurites, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. 2 Samuel 2, verse 9. This would have been way out of Abner's area of responsibility as Saul's former commander-in-chief. It wasn't up to him to choose and appoint the king. The Israelites were to be a theocracy, ruled over by God Almighty. It was up to him to choose their king, just as he had chosen Saul. Abner did not have authority or permission from God to do what he did, but he didn't let that small detail stand in his way. Lest we think this was a small matter that was of little or no significance, notice that Ishbosheth was made king over Geshur. That was an area within the territory belonging to the tribe of Manasseh. Jezreel was in the land belonging to the tribe of Issachar. And then the text goes on to include the tribes of Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. So effectively, Abner crowned Ishbosheth as king over all Israel, even countering David's claim to be king over Judah. And we're told that Ishbosheth reigned for 2 years. This was no short-lived flash-in-the-pan event. Once again, David found himself with serious opposition and facing another enemy from within his own nation. Saul was dead, but his son was alive, and so was Abner. And Abner had probably never forgotten the little lecture David had given him at Gibeah, after David had snuck into their camp and taken Saul's spear and water jug as he slept. "Well, Abner, you're a great man, aren't you?" David taunted. "Where in all Israel is there anyone as mighty? So why haven't you guarded your master the king when someone came to kill him? This isn't good at all. I swear by the Lord that you and your men deserve to die because you failed to protect your master, the Lord's anointed. Look around. Where are the king's spear and the jug of water that were beside his head?" 1 Samuel 26, verses 15 through 16. Abner even led his troops into battle against David and his men, meeting them at the pool of Gibeon. The initial conflict was an agreed-upon battle between 24 men, 12 from each side. This mini battle ended in a draw, with all 24 men dead. But that wasn't the end of the hostilities. It was followed by a pitched battle between the forces of these two opposing kings. Many would die that day. Like our own Civil War, this battle represented brother fighting against brother. It characterized the divided nature of the kingdom at that time. And this was the contentious atmosphere in which David was forced to begin his reign. David's path to the throne had been anything but easy, and it was not getting any smoother. He had been anointed by Samuel years earlier, but it had taken a long time before a crown was placed on his head. And even when it was, it represented the allegiance of a single tribe, his own. Winning over the other 11 tribes and solidifying his God-appointed position as king of Israel was going to be difficult and drawn out. There were still lessons for David to learn, and God was providentially shifting the mindset of the tribes of Israel from autonomous people groups living in isolation and under self-rule to that of a single nation united under one king. God was unifying what had been fractious. He was solidifying what had been disparate. He was making of the divided tribes of Israel a great nation that would be ruled by a great king, who was a man after his own heart. The days ahead would be rocky. They would be filled with disappointment. Many would die. Others would lose loved ones as a result of the battles that followed. David's fledgling kingdom would suffer before it ever experienced any success. But it was all part of God's sovereign plan.